Show. And I am pleased to have this early in the morning walk into the iambeast studio, the one, the only, the new podcast, the new innovation for channel, which Channel 8 TV, Miss Nicole Clark is in the house.
Hi. Thank you for having me here today.
Man, it's early too, and I appreciate you getting up. Well, you up anyway because you
I already been at work.
Yeah, you already been at work. So let's get right down to it. Tell the viewers a little bit about Miss Clark.
So, my name is Nicole Clark. Obviously, I'm the promotion programming director at Wish TV. And so basically, it's playing puzzle every day, but instead of puzzle pieces, it's TV shows.
Right.
And but I also have a true passion for motorsports because that's what I grew up in. So I actually have a podcast myself called Women Take the Wheel because to highlight women in motorsports and not just the women you see driving or working on a car, but all aspects of motorsports so that I can help other girls, learn how they can get in the business and be the future of motorsports.
Can you drive fast?
No. No, trust me, you don't want me driving. Ask one of my drivers how I drove the golf cart. And you don't want me in a race car.
So take the viewers down a little bit, Johnny. We talked yesterday a little before we came onto the show. And you got a very interesting life. Minnesota, correct?
Yep, I was born and raised in Northeast Minneapolis. And not to give away my age, but I was part of their busing program in Minneapolis.
Okay.
I went to 4 different schools before I never even moved even. I went to one school, they shut it down. They bused me half hour across the bridge and everything to North Minneapolis for a couple of years, different schools. I didn't even get to go to the same school as my brother, who was 3 years older than me.
Why did they have a shutdown in Minnesota?
They'd shut down a school, send me to another one, and nobody, on my school block, or on my block where I lived, we all went to different schools. And it was really weird.
You guys living next to each other, but all going to different schools. Yeah. But you're too young to understand.
Yeah.
Did you ask your parents what's going on?
Oh, yeah, my mom fought for me. There's even news footage of my mom fighting, to keep our one school open, to keep me from... They would have... So I went to different schools, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. They were going to move me again my 5th grade year, and my mom just fought tooth and nail. She's like, no, my daughter's going to keep going to the school.
But they never told you guys the reason why, was it?
Yeah, it's just Minneapolis school system.
That's how it works? They just say, okay, we're going to shut it down, you're going to go here?
Yeah, and we're going to change borders. But it really did help me, though, as a kid, because the whole point of it was integration for the first few years. And so I didn't know, colors of kids or whatever. It was just you're all my friends. Mm-hmm. It didn't bother me. And so in that respect, it helped a lot. And Minneapolis is truly a melting pot. So in high school, it was all different, ethnicities and everything. And then my parents moved me my junior year.
But now reality is starting to set in at a young age. Okay.
Yeah, but I was the first one in 2 generations of my entire family not to graduate from Edison High School. My mom, my dad, all my aunts and uncles on both sides of the family, all my brothers and sisters all graduated from the same high school.
But you.
But me.
How does that make you feel? Now you're really standing out.
It was hard a little bit because I made such friends and everything like that at my one school, but my mom moved me. Monday, I went to Edison. I cheered for a football game. No, I take it back. Monday I went. Tuesday I went to my new school. Wednesday I went back and cheered at my other school, and then I was at my new school again.
I know this is kind of hard to remember, but go back as far as you can and kind of what was it like doing that, going to different schools and rechanneling energy with new friends, and how did the kids feel about it as you went through this journey of transformation from integrating from one school to another? Let me call it what it really is, the Minnesota experiment.
It was, honestly, kids are flexible. I mean, I think nowadays people would be like, oh, my poor little thing. I think we were flexible. We're like, you know what? We got to the point where it just happens. Hey, hi, new friend. Mm-hmm. And so going to 6th grade, going to junior high was really hard because I finally had time to make friendships for more than a year. And but I think kids were flexible. We're just that's how it is. We'll just, when I went to 3rd grade, I ended up running into kindergarten kids finally. Right. And so it's just oh, I remember you. Okay, great. So luckily, I was flexible. It was hard the first 2 years because, I'm the youngest of 5 kids. Our family did not have money or anything. And so, I didn't get to participate a lot. because my parents weren't able to drive me half hour across, whenever there was a school event. But I just got used to that.
What was the family like? Five?
Yeah,
brothers and
5 kids.
sisters?
Mom,
Yeah.
dad was worked and mom took care of the kids. And, it's typical tough kids, you fight with your brother and sisters, but now they have my back. I mean, my mom and my dad, my family's my biggest cheerleaders.
What is your dad and mom? Your mom's a stay home. What's your dad do?
Oh, they were. Oh, but now, see, I'm so proud of my parents. My dad has always been in racing. He had a race car as a hobby. He was a supervisor manager at a CNC shop, I think they'd call him now.
Mm-hmm.
And he started a gasket business with his racing partner, and at one point, he was working both jobs. He'd work his one job all day, go work the other one at night. He brought my mom in, and she was doing the books for the new business. And they grew that business, and that's why we moved, because my parents were like, you know what? We're going to move to a house, a big house. We're going to move out of the city, move out to the burbs. And I'm so proud of them, because they just, thurned this small thing.
What's the burbs?
Oh, Andover, outside of. But my parents, they're like, they made it work, and they're like, you know what? We got this business, and we're going to grow, and they turned it into something big, and they still do this business, and they're successful, and I'm so proud of them. And, I'm the youngest, but they didn't treat me any different. They're like, you know what? We didn't pay for your brother and sister's college, so we're not going to pay for you. You have to pay for your own.
Did you?
Yeah.
Tell me that journey.
I worked 40 hours a week and went to school at the university. I did community college first, because that's obviously, it's the same thing. You're getting your associate's degree. You're taking all the same classes.
You're taking small steps, basically.
Yeah, and I liked community college better. I had better professors. I wasn't just a number, and did that first. And so, I worked and I paid for my own, and it makes you appreciate
the small things.
You have. And it appreciates, I worked my butt off for that degree, and I earned it, and nobody can take that away from me. I didn't have any student loans. I'm just and so that taught me such a valuable lesson, and, it kind of made me, when I meet these other kids, it's like, oh yeah, they never had real jobs. Mm-hmm. Mom and dad paid for all their college, went straight from college to try to get big, office jobs, and I'm like, you never learned the valuable lesson of customer service, working to earn what you get. And so my parents, they installed in me, you work to get what you have.
Right.
You're not going to get hands out. You worked for what you get. And so that's what I did. And it makes me appreciate it more.
How did the journey to Indianapolis come into effect? You didn't go from Minnesota to here. There was a journey, especially you did it by yourself. My hat's off to you. I wish a lot of people understood the number one thing, what you just said, the value of customer service and the ability to work hard for what you want, and realize that it takes small steps to get there. Yeah. But what was the steps to get to Indianapolis, Indiana?
And like I said, and go to the other part too, I think everyone should have to work customer service or waitress once in their life.
Or flip a hamburger.
Yes, to really understand. Everybody should have to do that once in their life. You can't just not know this stuff. So I moved to Kansas City area with my husband at the time. He was in law enforcement.
And how old were you when you got married, just out of curiosity?
25.
So you were still young?
Yeah, still young, but we got married and I worked in TV. I got very fortunate because the TV market, one of my professors, you're not going to get the Kansas City market. Well, it just so happened that the creative services director went to the same college as me. She is from Minnesota, and she worked at the station that I interned at. That's my other thing, kids. Internships.
And build relationships.
Yes, that's what I did, and that's how I ended up getting in, because I interned. In fact, I was one of the youngest interns. I worked at Care 11, and interned at Care 11, and so when I went to Kansas City, she's like, oh, there's Care, there's Minnesota. I need somebody from Minnesota on my crew. I'll start you out part-time temporary. And it was hard, I'm not going to lie, I cried nights, but then she's like, do you want to do this full time? I'm like, okay.
What were some of the reasons that made you cry? You said it was hard. When somebody here is part-time, but you might have gotten a part-time opportunity, but you had to work hard to get to the full for them to even recognize what you wanted out of this.
You got to prove yourself, just like everything. You have to prove yourself and not just slide by. And so it was, it's just hard because it's stressful. News is stressful. I was doing the news topicals, they're coming up tonight at 5. I'm writing them, I'm editing them, shooting them sometimes, and You know, it's hard. You have to meet those deadlines that makes you anxious enough. And then, you know, you got the anchors and all this, and you're worried about how your product is and the news director. And
you're doing the things that people don't see. They see the finished product that you basically spend hours putting together.
Yeah, behind the scenes. And,
Yeah.
like, I'm recording stuff at 3, and they have to get on the air. And if you ever saw that movie Broadcast News, you know, back in the day where she's running the tape, Joan comes
Yeah.
out, she's running. I did that. I have been there running my tape down to master to age myself again. So, yeah, so I worked there for years and years. And I got burnt out on news. And, like I said, my passion's NHRA racing with my family.
Why do you think you got burnt out?
If you think it's depressing sometimes watching the news, try working in it. And that just takes a toll on you, all the depression of the news.
But
And
you have to read it. People don't understand, as an editor, you literally have to read and view things that you're putting out. And it could be depressing if you all of a sudden here's 5 murders, 20 robberies, and you got to read it to make sure you put out the right kind of content.
Being in the news during 9/11, that was just like, that's changing too. With all that was going down and being in a newsroom, it was all hands on deck, and everybody, I mean, even the sports reporters, I mean, I will never forget having to work, you know, the week of 9/11 and doing all that. So, it just, you know, it drains on you, and it's a lot, and you're working long hours, you know, and you don't feel like you're even off because you're like paying attention to stuff when you're not working. It's like, oh, I missed that, I did that. And
when you was dealing with 9/11, how crucial was it to get the right information? Because we're not there. How crucial was it for you as the behind the scenes, quote unquote, putting the pieces together, making sure that what you're giving out is accurate, updated information?
Well, and you know, most of it was people who knew people there.
Okay.
But it's just like, because we were ABC affiliate, so we had the national news, and so they were pretty much on start to, you know, for 2 days. It was pretty much them and then us, and just getting local response, like sports stuff, everything stopped. We had the people from the local sports station over shooting and everything for us, shooting and reporting for us, and it was, you know, just hard making sure everybody got the right information, but yet keeping everybody calm, and, you know, not trying to cause panic. You know, it's a fine wire act.
What changed after 9/11 for you and being burnt out and having so much? Were you still married at the time?
Yeah, and
dealing with a marriage.
Yeah, I worked until 2014. But like I said, and the other thing about 9/11, it's kind of ironic too. And I'm open about telling people I deal with depression and anxiety. I mean, I was diagnosed with it back when I was 19, when you weren't depressed back then, and like they didn't. And I remember, you know, I had such bad anxiety issues, like I'd get physically sick and stuff like that. And I had just, you know, but we kind of worked on it. I had just went on antidepressants like the week before 9/11.
Really?
And thank God I did, because I don't know how I would have handled it without. And, you know, because I'm one of those people, I'm honest about your mental health. Take care of yourself. If you have to get meds, get meds. If you have to, you know, do what you have to do to make sure you're. And so I just started. And thank God for that.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Because who knows, you know, I could have been on that, but luckily I started doing that, and I was evening out my mental health. So
I could just imagine, just by sitting there talking to you and learning your trade myself. Yeah, you have to be on something or get your mind right, because that's a lot of stuff to process.
It takes a toll on you. So, but yeah, so it just changed where, you know, I don't know how much it really changed me, but it's more like being aware and being surrounded and how everything impacts everybody.
Where was your husband during this time?
He's law enforcement, so he's having to deal with stuff too.
So you dealing with actually having tons of paperwork flowing in you. He's actually out there trying to make sure that we don't have riots and all kind of stuff and bring us home. How do you work it out? Because you're still young. You're 20-some years old.
Yeah, and then like I said, I was in news till 2012 is when I got out. And for him too, it actually got kind of awkward at times because he was a public information officer, which means he's the one who gives the information to the news. And so it's like I'm in the morning meeting, they're like, "Hey, did they arrest anybody on this, Nikki?" And I'm just like, "I don't know. I don't know anything. Can't tell me anything. I don't know." So, but yeah, so he was like part of the news family as it was, but yeah. So then, as my journey continued, you know, I got into motorsports full time, and that's a lot of traveling. You always think you want to travel, but I was with a marketing group for it, sports marketing, and so we did with activation, social media, when it was just coming about. And I'm like, y'all, we need to pay attention to the social media stuff. We need to do more. And
Right.
so work with that. And
When you say motorsports, so the viewers can understand, there's tons of different motorsports. You have Indy racing, you have NASCAR, you have Formula One, you have Grand Prix. Drag racing? What part was you in?
I was drag racing at NHRA because, like I said, that's why I knew and grew up in.
John Force.
Yes. And here's the funny thing too is that everybody's like, "Oh, you must have got in because your parents." And like, my parents had no idea.
Right.
They had no idea. Like, I was even applying for this job. I found it on Twitter. A buddy's like, "Hey, a friend of mine needs somebody who knows media and drag racing."
Boom.
And I'm like, "Well, this is perfect." And my mom and dad are like, "Are you sure it's not a scam?" I'm like, "No, it's real." So I got in, and my last name was different at the time, so nobody knew I was, you know, a Clark kid. And then eventually, over the years, they're like, "Oh my God, you're there! Oh, you're so and so's little, you know, Jared's little sister." And but you know, same thing. I had to work and earn, and you know, we dealt with sponsor activation, dealt with press releases and everything, and making sure all of our sponsors got what they, you know, were paying for, their return on investments. And
so your job, to clarify to the viewers, at that time, your job is to make sure that their product is brand worthy.
Yes.
To the people that sponsor them.
Yeah. And I was making sure the sponsors like getting their money's worth, because it's like in their contract, we're supposed to get this, this, and this. So every week I'm like, here you go. Here's proof. You got this, this, and this. And, you know, we're signing people up for their database. And like I said, it was nice when I got there. It's like everybody knew me. And so I made like a racing family who I still love.
How was you going to be able to how did you master this craft to make sure that the people were going to get what was promised to them? Did you do more research into the client themselves and said, okay, this is the checklist, this is what you can give, guaranteed, this is what you weak at? Did you work with them on their weaknesses as well as their strengths before you actually put together the package?
Yeah, my boss did that. I helped with the research too. I'd look at potential sponsors where I'm like, you know what, this would be a good guy to sponsor your car, or like business to business deals. Like, hey, why don't you talk to so and so? And I'd help research. I love research. I am that nerd who in college loved research papers, and so I'd help find contacts for my boss. And even a couple people he talked to, they're like, how did you find my contact? He's like, oh, I got a girl.
Right.
But yeah, so, and I was the marketing person, so I was instilling the importance of, you know, social media, press releases, making sure our message got out to the media, and setting up press appearances and stuff like that. And it was a lot, you know. When I was there, I traveled about to 20 races a year. And then, you know, I got divorced, and that my position was going away at the marketing agency. So I'm like, you know, I'm going to go on my own and do this because I know everybody. I can do it. So it's really hard, and I can't believe I did this at the time, but I actually, by myself, I'm now divorced by myself, 2 dogs, and I'm like, you know what, my teams are in Indy, so I'm going to move to Indy. So by myself, I decided to start my own agency, move 3 states, and buy a house all within like 3 months.
That's unheard of.
I don't recommend that. I don't recommend that. And then, you know, so I'm trying to like make myself independent, and it was a lot of change for me. I'm not going to lie. I mean,
you didn't want to reach out to your parents?
No. And my ex, he was the one who did all the bills and everything like that. So it was a learning experience for me. After like getting out of that and having to figure out all this stuff myself, and
how to run a checking account.
Well, no, I mean basics like that, but just like taking care of everything. Like, he always took care of like paying all the bills, and so no, I was doing that, and you know, moving, and the mail system sucks, you know. But you know, and having the 2 dogs, and then I traveled 22 weekends a year, 23 weekends a year, then boarding the dogs, and I didn't know that many people here. I mean, I had these friends at the track. They're like, sure, I'm your friend, I'm your friend. Well, you get to town, and are they really your friends, you know?
I told somebody that the other day. I'm like, everybody says their friends. You know your friends when you need them.
Yes. And so that like just made me independent too. Like, when I moved to town, like,
Were
hey,
there any regrets? You said you reached out to, you thought you had
Mm-hmm.
a strong network here,
Mm-hmm.
and you reached out during your time of need, and you really don't want everybody to know your business, but these are supposed to be
Yeah.
your backbone and backbone. Was there ever a point when you got here that there might have been like, maybe I shouldn't have did that?
Oh, from the first weekend I moved here, like, knowing I can't always rely on people. Because, like, my first weekend, I'm like, hey, I'm moving. Can I get some people to help me unload my house?
Or you asked people to help you move?
No, just unload. Like, I got moving trucks. I did that by myself, too. I didn't have a moving company. It was me and my, like, second mom, Patty.
Yeah.
It was just the two of us. We drove the trailer, the dogs.
You know, one thing I noticed about when you ask people to help you unload or move?
Yeah.
The number you have reached.
Is not in service. And here's their defense too, but I'm like, the only weekend I had available was Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, yeah. There's the track.
Yeah, well, I had like 3 people who were like, yeah, we'll help, and of course they didn't. And so that like really hurt me, because like, I thought you guys were friends, but then later on I learned like, oh yeah, life stops for Indy 500, but still, so I mean, even like hanging stuff in my house, I did everything myself. My parents came and helped me like do a few things, because they still lived in Minnesota. I had no family here, but I'm like, I'm going to do this. That's what you do, business. I'm moving for my job, and in the process of moving, like, I had started off with like 3 different companies at the beginning of the year. One shut its doors, and another fell through too. So I just had one company that I was working for, and it's just, and there's drama in every job, but this seemed like a lot of drama. But so then after 2 years, I mean, it was trying to wean myself on being independent, doing my own insurance and all that, and then it takes a toll on your mental health. I mean,
what did you
the
do
food,
to keep
the diet.
What did you do to change that perspective? Because you've already made the journey.
Mm-hmm.
You're now divorced.
Mm-hmm.
You saw 9/11. You dealt with it,
Yeah.
but you're still on that journey. You're still young.
Yeah.
But more importantly, you recognize that it's taking a toll on your mental health. How do you keep moving forward?
Like I said, I think 2017 is when I really started to recognize, like, how your mental health impacts your attitude towards others and stuff like that. And it hurts. I learned to exercise is a good way. I have a shirt that even says I work out to burn off the crazy. But it was 2000.
You do something else. You just showed me before we started the show. You do something with your phone. You and your friend.
Oh yeah, my friend and I, we work out. Like, one of my best friends. It's like we don't want to end up big and fat like our exes, and so we text each other after selfies after every workout to keep each other in check and encourage each other on. So my friend Lisa is like, me and her got each other, and she's one of those friends who've been with me. I met interning. My internship turned into my best friend. We're still friends, but 2017 is when I really recognized, and the end of 2017-18 is really when I hit kind of like rock bottom mental health. And one of the things I'm proud I overcame is, so I had like one of the guys I worked for, worked for 2017, pretty much dropped the ball and like stiffed me out of thousands of dollars. I've still never seen that money. And so I'm like, okay, I'm trying to pay bills, and this guy's paying me. My credit cards are going up. I'm trying to get clients, for the next year. The one guy I thought was a prospect I was going to work for texts me on New Year's Eve. Nah, sorry, not going to do it. And so, like, we're starting the race season. I have no client. I have nobody to work for. My depression was just so bad. My anxiety was so bad. I'm having panic attacks. I even had to go to the emergency room. And I didn't leave my house for weeks. I'd have to have my mom, she'd call me and check on me and be like, just take a shower today. Stuff like that. And I was like, and sorry if I get emotional.
No,
that was hard. But that's when I discovered mental health. I'm like, okay, I got to do something. And so you have to keep your mind busy. So then I'm like, I did retail. Going back, I worked at Kohl's. That keeps my mind, gives something to do. I went into therapy. Therapy saved my life. And I tell everybody, don't be afraid to go to a therapist. Because you discover stuff you didn't realize, like I have to do everything myself. And they're like, why is that? Maybe you should ask people more to help you. And I was working 4 part-time jobs by myself to get mom, like, I'm doing this myself. I got myself into it. I'm getting myself out of it. So I'm working part-time at Cole's. I'm working part-time at a TV station. I'm working hosting trivia a couple times a week at bars around town. And then I'm even still doing racing part-time for another driver who got in, and I'm good at my job. I'm good at it.
That's a lot of hats. When do you start pulling some of the hats off and say, I still got to get time for me?
I didn't. There was time I had a day off. There was 1 month I had a day off, but I had to keep myself busy. I had to keep my mind and going back and being around people, and so I just finally I was doing part-time at Wish TV, and they're like, you know what, sales is hiring a full-time job, and we think you might be perfect for this because your creativity, marketing, I think you'd really help. And so luckily I got full-time, so I'm like, okay, I'm able to drop this one job. But
That's what I mean, yeah.
So I was still doing other jobs, and I finally let go of Kohl's, but Kohl's helped me so much. It helped me bring myself back and work off. I mean, heck, at Kohl's, I was doing customer service. I was doing truck at 4 or 5 a.m. on Wednesdays, unloading semi-trucks full of stuff every Wednesday. That's a great workout, by the way.
I bet it is.
10,000 steps before 9 o'clock in the morning. But, and then I'm back to doing what I love and getting the creativity going, because that's a big part of me too. I love crafting, and I lost that mojo. When your mental health, when you recognize that it's I usually do this, I'm not doing this, something's wrong. And I noticed that something's wrong.
When you went to therapy, and I mean, you don't have to get deep, because I tell people your mental health is really crucial, and I'm 100% for therapy. Therapy has done. Steve Cooper, shout out to my therapist, great guy. What was one of the things that in your therapy that allowed you to really channel what you was trying to do? Because I remember talking with my therapist. I said, don't give me everything at once. Just give me one task to do, and if it takes me a year to master that task, then that's one thing. But what's the one thing out of all that you was going through in your life that you realized your depression, I mean your mental health was suffering, then you go back into that state of mental health, you go to the therapy? What was the one thing that you remember that he or she said, if you work on this one thing, you will see a difference?
I think it's just the whole just recognizing. It's being aware of hey, if this checklist, if this is happening, you have to ask yourself, hey, what am I, doing wrong, or I have to get back on track.
Okay.
I think that's the most part, is just the recognizing it. And I even, I even had a setback this year where I talked to her and I'm just but I was aware. I'm well, it's because of my diet. I was eating out the whole weekend. I was with my family. God bless it. I love my family. But, we get and, the traveling and just just
so some of them
the trauma at the track.
Came back.
Yeah, the triggers. And and that was a big one. That is a big one, is noticing your triggers and staying away from it. There was this one, a friend I talked about, and she's and I'm yeah, but she's she doesn't sound like a friend. She did this to you, that really doesn't sound like a friend. And I'm you're right. She did this to me, that's not a good friend. That's not a friend. And so, I stayed away from her, and I think you nailed on the head. The triggers is well, I can't be in this position because that will trigger me.
Right.
And so I try to stay away from things I know will cause me anxiety. I know I got to stay away from the people that I know is just going to make me feel bad about myself. Because that's another thing, too, in the therapy. I just personally blame myself for everything. I apologize for everything. It must be my fault. She's no, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not always your fault. Have a little bit more faith in yourself. You have faith in everybody else.
But I have faith in you.
Yes. And that's another one I'll share really quick, is that one time she had me write down 5 things I like about myself. And 5 things, I think people see in me. And it's just well, they see that, but I don't feel that. It's my friends would say on this, but I don't really feel like that. She's really? So, you just have to take personal inventory almost and be like, what attributes you want to have and give yourself some credit. And I was horrible about that. And I still to this day, I'm like, there's a guy I like, but he doesn't like me, and I'm like, did me wrong. And I'm like, oh, it must be my fault. I must have did this, And I'm like, why am I making him the perfect person? He can do no wrong. Maybe it's him. Maybe I was just fine.
Right.
So it took me a while, but to notice, to be aware, is one of the biggest things that my therapist taught me.
Now that you notice those things, your life is starting to change here.
Yeah.
Now at Wish
Yes.
TV, explain to the viewers a little bit more clarity what you do at Wish, and more importantly, some of the new things that you share with me that Wish is doing for the new dawn of a new way of communicating, is what I call it.
See, that's the thing for mental health too, is my job in TV. Going back to what I knew and what I loved, because I knew from a kid I wanted to be in broadcasting. I wanted to be, first I wanted to be a reporter,
Right.
and then I interned in promotions. I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm doing promotions. This is my jam. But, getting back to being consistent and having a constant day-to-day. But so I spent most of my career in promotions, which is, promoting the station, press release. The news does the news. I sell the news, basically, and market it. So, as I said, I was in sales, but I love Wish TV, and I love our owner, Dwan McCoy, because he promotes from within. So I went from sales to programming and being his personal assistant.
You educated me on him, and I was totally blown away to find out who he was.
Yes, and so he bought the station, and when I was pretty new there, and I kind of fell into programming. I'm a TV nerd. I always been a TV nerd, loved TV shows, and I kind of fell into it, and the person kind of up and left, and so I stepped up, and I'm like, you know what, you guys, I'll help you, I got this. And so I was doing all this stuff, and Dwan was impressed. He's like, hey, you owned it, you worked it, you earned it, do you want the job? And I'm like, heck yeah.
Right.
So I was doing the programming, and I was his personal assistant starting there, and he's pretty easy. He's very independent, but still, set up his meetings, making sure, he gets in the office, everything's there. And
but you know what else was good about that scenario?
Learning from him.
He recognized you.
Yes. He recognized my talents, and I just learned so much. And I'm one of those people, you learn every day. You learn something new every day. Every job, you can't be the top of your game and know everything.
You got that right.
You learn every day, and so I still believe in that. I'm still learning every day. I learn from the people around me. You never stop learning, and so he's a genius business guy. So
what makes him a brilliant? You've been there, and there's tons of other television stations. What makes what you do and what you learn from him the reason for staying there, and what do you see happening with you and him? What are you bringing different to Indiana?
Well, I see with him, with other stations, it's pretty cut and dry. This is what we do.
I was going to say, is it cut and dry?
Yeah, it's just in your network controlled, whatever. We have an affiliate, but it's his station. We're not owned by a big media like Nexstar or something. We are owned by Circle City Broadcasting, Dwan. And so he's like, we have inventory to do this. We don't have to answer to anybody else. We can try this. We can try this. And he sees ahead in the market, and he's got a crystal ball or something.
I like that. Yeah.
He'll be doing stuff, and then all of a sudden I'll read a national article like, hey, this is going in this direction. I'm like, well, Dwan was doing that 6 months ago.
Right.
So anyway, he's teaching me about programming. He's teaching me about TV business and that. And one of the things I was starting to do was placing promotions on the log, and I would make, I'm like, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that, and he's like, show me your resume again. And he saw all my experience. He's like, Nikki, what you doing up here? I'm bringing. Do you want to go down promotions and try to do this? I'm like, yeah. That's where I'm strongest at. So he's big at promoting within, and if you prove yourself, you can, he rewards you, and so that's why I love it.
How does it feel to be like that? Because
it's hard.
What's that job thing where I was telling you today? Everybody goes to McDonald's, but I've never seen McDonald's. Nobody has ever seen Ronald McDonald. He's not a clown, but to know that he's there, and to know that you're working for a company that is willing to take your talents and bring your talents, and you both share ideas to the future. I love it, to be honest, because me and you talked about that. I like to see a television station that's not so cut and dry, that's willing to see beyond normal and say, this might be the future. I'm willing to take that gamble and see where it goes.
Yeah. And he's good at that.
But you're doing something else there too. You got your own podcast. Tell me about it, how that came out, and what sparked that idea. And the fact that not only that, you shared it with the owner, and he was willing to back you on that. Tell that journey real quick before we
So like I said, so then I went, like I said, then I went down to promotions. I do both. So he recognized podcasting. He's like, podcasting is huge. Podcasting, some people get stuff nowadays. Alexa, do this. Alexa, play me this. You're on the go. And so he recognized, like, we should do a podcast network. Nobody else in town is doing one. We can do it because we can do these things. And like I said, he saw. And my sales director at the time was like, you're really passionate about motorsports. Why don't you do a podcast? Really? He's like, yeah, do a podcast. And so I'm like, no, But then I thought about it. I'm like, okay. And I want it to be about women. Because, I want to help other girls get in business. And I want to talk to the people who have broken the barriers. And, the people like, I got to talk to Lynn St. James, And
Sarah Fisher?
Yeah, I am talking to Rita. She's on my list, though. But,
okay.
But, talking to Lynn St. James, check when she started, women even were allowed on pit road.
Yeah.
And, so I'm like, I want to highlight these women and talk about it. My first guest was Leah Pruitt, Tony Stewart's wife, and me and her have been friends for a while. I just adore her. And she's racing for the championship. Cool, yeah. So I'm like, I want to highlight women. I want other girls to learn. And so my podcast is not just about hanging out and, I like you. I want people to learn from other people. So I'm like, how did you get into this sport? What prompted you? Who gave you your love of the sport? What advice? I always ask everybody, what's your advice for girls, who want to get in? Like, don't quit. Keep doing this, Get in while you can. And so...
You got to have John Force's daughter.
Yeah, I've been trying. Yeah, Brittany and Courtney, I'm friends with them.
Man, I tell you, to get in one of those cars going super fast and just a parachute and you hope that it don't... That's a skill.
I talked to Leah. When I talked to Leah, she had just crashed in St. Louis. Like, her car pretty much went in the air, split in half, and she walked away.
Ain't that crazy?
Yeah, to talk about that, God bless her, because I think I was talking to her. She's like, she saw sky, and she's like, well, that's not good. I was like, that's not good. I should be seeing sky. I've been very fortunate for the people I've got to interview. I'm very excited because we have the Performance Racing Industry Show. They come to town, PRI, they come to Indy every year with the top 5 conventions. It's all the motorsports in the country. And I get to do my podcast there, like live in their podcast studio. Because I haven't worked with them, they're located in Speedway now.
Okay.
And so I actually get to do my podcast live there. They came to me because I've been working with them. I've had them on the show. And
I think that's great.
But yeah, and like I said, I tried to get all the IndyCar people on. Like, we had their person in charge of their internships and that's another one. College students who want to get into motorsports, go talk to IMS. Because that's such a great, they actually pay for their interns.
Okay. And
you work overtime pay, which is, But yeah, so my podcast, I just wanted to highlight these women who work there, like you said, behind the scenes. You don't see Ronald McDonald.
Right.
Tony, one of my favorites too, was like Tony Stewart, his Kelly Antonelli, who runs his Nitro program. She does so much to run that program, and there's so much that goes into it. And I'm like, Kelly, I need to have you on the show because I want everybody to recognize all the work you do for all these guys out there and making sure they
and Stewart Racing is Indiana's own.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love him. He's so great.
I love Tony Stewart. That's Indiana's own.
Yeah.
What about Jeff George and his racing team?
I've not met him yet.
You're going to have to.
I know.
Put it out there in the universe. Yeah, come on to your show, Jeff.
Well,
George.
and I've worked with Beth Poretta, who's had a car at the Indy 500, the all-female team.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with her in the Della Penna Foundation, and I got to know more women through that and what they've been doing. They now have, here in Indy with IUPUI, they have internships where the girls get to go work at Steinbrenner Racing and getting them on pit road. They're taking the girls down there. They took girls from an inner city and brought them to Indy 500 to learn, like, hey, girls, you can do this. Teach them about STEM. They're like, hey, don't let anybody tell you. And really quick, one of my favorites, one of the girls lives like 4 blocks from Speedway, from IMS. and the little girl thought it was a prison. She didn't realize it was a racetrack. She just saw all the fence and the barbed wire. She didn't realize what was there. And they took her there, and they're like, hey, girls, look what you can do. These are some of the jobs you can have there.
Right.
And I loved it. I'm like, I want to work with you guys. I want to do stuff because I want those little girls to see what they can do.
What are some of the other podcasters that and I have to give shouts out to Channel 8 and the owner and yourself for seeing the future. And like I said, to me, podcast, I said it a long time ago, it's the future. It gives individuals a chance to be individualized, to share their passion. And my hat's off to you guys for allowing a platform for these guys to do that. What are some of the podcasts that are up under your which platform right now?
Well, like I said, when we started it, I think we maybe had like 15 podcasts. Now I think we're up to 40 plus, and we're always looking for more, which is great. Our two most downloaded ones are the Daily 8, where we just recap the daily headlines. People in their car can listen to the headlines when they're on to work, and Scott Sanders, Daybreak Drive-In. Our weather podcast is also Marcus Bailey, who I just adore. He's a big weather nerd, which I love, and so... but we do that, but then we also have outside people who aren't even Wish employees who come, because we have 2 podcast studios, and so we want to, branch our podcast community, and we have Alan Ha at our station who has embraced it and taken over, and so we've got people in the community, people who, want to get their message out, and they're recording their podcasts with us now, and so I think, I said we are up to like 40 podcasts now. We're always looking. So you can always email us. We'd love to have more podcasts on the air because that's something we can grow. And like we said, we're so proud of it because nobody else, in the market is really doing that podcast. But like I said, Dwan McCoy, he can see down the road.
I appreciate you coming on the show. Lead the viewers and really opening up and taking me down a journey that really was definitely surprising that we went down there. But I appreciate you, Shine. I can see the passion in it. You definitely travel the journey. That's definitely beast mode right here. That beast frame of mind is just right here. Leave the viewers with something that you live by every day.
I'm like, that's a hard question because I have so many thoughts always going through my brain every day. It's a high functioning anxiety thing. Just work to be your best. I mean, don't forget about yourself. We have so many people, and I'm guilty of this too. You do so much for so many other people. Make sure you take care of yourself, and make sure your mental health is good. Make sure you're supporting your loved ones and your others. I mean, just take care of yourself first and others, because when you're better, the way you treat other people, the way you interact with other people is going to improve also.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode with Nicole Carter on the Andre The Beast Crayton